Hello everybody, welcome again to another Office Chat. My name's Luke for the Matias Group. Today I have a very interesting guest, Mr. Dale Rawle from EC Credit Control. Welcome to the office. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to come along and educate us. So Dale and I met at a breakfast only a couple of weeks ago, and we were just discussing what we do and where the value is and what you sort of where the value proposition is to their clients. And I was just off doing my own thing, talking and chit-chatting, and then all of a sudden I heard this conversation coming from Dale, and I instantly honed in on it. And it is an area that I had absolutely no idea myself, and I tend to think we're across a few businesses and we have the advice of good people, except there's just a small area in this around PPSR and the control of credit that really sparked my attention. I immediately invited Dale into our office to, I suppose, more educate the rest of our networks, because it really hooked my attention, Dale, the information that you had, and made me realise the lack of understanding I had on an area that is a key part to one of my businesses, and more importantly, a number of my clients' businesses and my vendors that I'm very heavily involved in. So Dale is an advisor and a worker around the control of ownership of product, of debt, how that flows, and I suppose the potential reimbursement of debt once it's been paid.
Management of credit.
Management of credit. And he said to me, do you offer credit? And I said, no. Turns out we do. Through the Wooden Hanger fashion agency, we give women's fashion out on terms. So all of a sudden we're a creditor. Dale immediately saw a weakness in our game plan, and we've come on board, and I'd love to share a lot of this with you. Dale, the conversation we had immediately that really sparked my attention, give us a bit of an overview about it.
So we're talking about the Personal Property Securities Register. Now, the PPSR was introduced in January 2012. One of the problems we've got is that it's been very poorly marketed. So it was introduced by the federal government. The federal government aren't very good at marketing, so nobody's heard of it. Now, what the PPSR basically says, that if you give credit to your clients and your clients pay you late and they go broke within the next 6 months, you will very likely have to give that money back. Now, the PPSR allows you to register a secured interest in these clients and the credit you're providing, and protects you from having to give the money back under preferential payment clawback, which is part of the Corporations Act. So this is the part of the conversation that's piqued your interest, is the fact that nobody ever wants to have to give money back that they've earned, either selling a product or providing a service.
So what that means is, when we finance a car, our banks put PPSR registers over the registrable assets, the trucks, the cars, yes. So that if our end users and clients park in Coles one day, Coles had gone bankrupt in the meantime, and they shut the gates and the debt collectors come in and they put a nice ribbon around it, it basically says that car is still mine in the parking lot, and I can still go in there and drive it off. Because if they don't have the registration over it, they don't have PPSR, they have no rights, because it's in the Coles grounds.
Yeah,
it's a novice way. Correct. So that's a novice version of it, and that's, I suppose, where my understanding went. What I didn't understand is the whole the clawback of paid monies. So let's go for an idea here. We fund for a number of IT companies and photocopier companies and companies that give out product. Yep. Now, in the case of finance, our funders put all the PPSR over the photocopiers. So that's pretty well covered. But when they sell direct to customers, say for instance they're doing an IT rollout and they're buying 50 laptops and 50 desktops, let's just say $100,000 to one of their clients, and they put it on 7-day terms. Give us a scenario around what this looks like and how they may not be covered and how it can potentially ongoing cause them grief.
The current scenario, putting aside the PPSR, the way most people are doing this, is that they will
invoice the client $100,000
Yep.
on a 7-day terms, and the client would pay maybe in 7, 8, 9 days. If that customer goes broke in the next 6 months, then those funds being paid late outside your terms will be deemed to have been preferentially paid. So you're paid in preference to the secured creditors.
Who are the secured creditors?
So the secured creditors are anyone that's got a affected security collateral registered on the PPSR. So that'll be anyone that's doing it properly, and the most people that are currently doing it properly are the banks and some larger organisations, but not all. What should happen under the PPSR is that the person who's requested the work to be done will have signed an agreement, whether it be a quote or a credit account application form. That agreement will have correctly written, legally enforceable terms of trade attached to it that allows the seller to register a secured interest not only in the product but also in the money that the customer will owe you. If, in the case somebody does go under, not only can the seller get the stock back because he's got a secured interest in it, same as you were telling about the car, but it also allows him to ensure that he doesn't have to return the funds under preferential payment clawback, because you cannot be paid in preference to a secured creditor if you are one.
So let me just, one of our IT companies, ABC IT, let's just say, they give out $100,000 of stock in 7 days, they get paid in 8. So it's outside of that credit term. Now, 3 months later, their client goes bankrupt. Now, are you telling me that the ATO or their bank, whoever's losing the money, the secured creditors of the end client, can come back to our ABC IT company and say, you were paid in front of me, outside of terms, so the client was under duress, I want that $100,000 back?
Okay, so in basic terms, what occurred in the past prior to the PPSR being implemented, that if a company went under, the receiver would be appointed, he would liquidate the assets, he would then make an offer to the secured creditors of 3, 4, 5, 10 cents in the dollar, whatever was viable, and the unsecured creditors would get nothing. Now, the most common secured creditor was the bank and the ATO. They were usually owed the most, so they got paid the most. What now happens is when a receiver is appointed, the receiver goes straight to the PPSR, so the Personal Property Securities Register, and starts paying the secured creditors in order of registration date in full. Now, one of the good things is the ATO can no longer be a secured creditor, he's one of the unsecureds. So one, he's not soaking up the cash within the secured creditors list, and there's another reason why it's good that he's an unsecured. So, receiver's going through, paying the secured creditors in order of registration date in full, and when he runs out of money, which he's got to do because that's why they went under in the first place, he now uses a link to the Corporations Act to turn to all the unsecured creditors, including the ATO, and says that if you've been paid in the last 6 months and you knew or ought to have known that this company was trading insolvent or in trouble,
Being outside of payment terms.
outside of payment terms is just enough. Then if you ought to have known they were in trouble, then you've been paid in preference to the secured creditors that I'm trying to pay, and under the Corporations Act, that's preferential payment, I want it back. So what's been happening is the tax office is having to hand back money to receivers, but all of the unsecured creditors are also having to pay back money to the receivers.
This is incredible. As I said when we first met, I don't know how this isn't more commonly known information. I have no idea.
I can answer that question quite simply. The people that most businesses are looking to find out or expect to find out this information is the accounting fraternity. Now, the issue we've got is that they rely on the fact that the accountants will tell them what's going on. The problem we've got is the accountants missed this. Now, they might understand that PPSR allows organisations to register secured interest over things like trucks and cars and things, but they miss the rest. The rest is the intangibles, like book debt. And book debt's the biggest one. As we know, just about everybody in business gives credit, so they're all at risk. But this is just one of the small parts of it. I know this is one of the big parts for most people like yourselves, but it's also just one of the smaller parts. if you lend money to your company and you don't do that on a loan agreement that's registered on PPSR.
If I personally lend money to my company.
Yeah, don't take it back out if you think the company's going broke, because you'll have to give it back. The other thing, if you think you've got an asset that sits in a holding company or a trust and it's being used by your trading entity, and your trading entity gets into trouble, if you think you can just fold that trading entity and start up again with the same assets, you think again, because the receiver appointed to the trading entity will say, where's your plant and equipment? You'll say, the trust owns it. He said, I don't care who owns it. So if the trust has retrieved it from this organisation in the last 6 months, it's been preferentially paid in asset, not cash. I want it all back.
There goes your business.
Accountants have missed this. Accountants understand tax mitigation, they understand superannuation. This is a specialised field. It's the same as going to a GP who will refer you to a specialist. Accountants do tax. What accountants have missed about this is all the intricacies of how this infiltrates all sorts of organisations.
This is massive. I'm not sure if it comes across how important this conversation is, and I can name 50 people, I reckon. Give me 20 minutes, I can name 50 people, 50 clients who this would directly affect. And the reason we've introduced Dale into our network is because this has a big bearing on many people's businesses. My own, our fashion agency, we offer terms. We've now brought Dale on board to help us through these terms. How do you go about if a client is doing the wrong version, or I say the incomplete version, they're protecting themselves properly?
So
what's the process to?
First step, we have a look at your existing terms of trade.
Yep.
And we assess them against the legislation.
Yep.
We see whether there's an ability for you to register a secured interest. But as well as that, we also look for things like defaults and consequences clause. Even if someone doesn't go broke, they may not pay you. What are the consequences of that? Yesterday I spoke to an electrician. I said, where are your terms of trade? And he says on the bottom of the invoice, here, pay in 7 days. I said, okay, what if I don't? He said, well, I don't really know. I said, well, yeah, there's no consequences to that. I said, these terms are an agreement between you and your customer, and they must be agreed to prior to the trade occurring.
Yep.
But once agreed to, it lays down the ground rules for how you will deliver your product and how they will pay you, and what happens when things go wrong, as we know things do. So, apart from all this, I mean, one of the biggest parts of the set of terms of trade is privacy statement. Now, if you don't have correctly written privacy agreements that complies with the 11 privacy principles, don't think you're going to be blacklisting someone that doesn't pay you. We're not allowed to. The law is now in favour of all the debtors. And what we're trying to do is wrestle back some of that control. And this is what the terms of trade allows you to do. So the PPSR is just one thing. These things do a lot more than that. So our job, first of all, is to have a look at your existing terms of trade, if any, advise as to what requires to be strengthened or added, and then we'll even do the PPSR registrations for you, because it isn't simple.
This is huge. This really is, and I'm so glad I was fortunate to be at a breakfast where I heard you speak, and I came across this, because as a businessman, as a business owner who unknowingly is a creditor, it provides credit that could mean I give back money that in my mind is mine. Yeah. Why should I give it back? I gave some computers, I gave some stock, I gave some advice. Why should I give it back? I gave the advice. That's my attitude before this conversation, and I guarantee you that's 90% plus of the people in our network's attitude, because you do something, you expect to get paid. It's the law of life, right?
Is not the old law used to be possession was 9/10 of the law.
Yep.
It's now 10/10. That's how it works. So if you've got something of value and it's going to be in somebody else's hands,
even if it's another entity within your own organisation, it needs to be registered. The secured interest needs to be registered because it is no longer yours. If you take a piece of art down to get it framed, have an agreement with your framer, because if he goes broke while your art's there, it's his, not yours. This is huge, and I have so many examples of what occurs that people have not thought of. That the only method is to sit down like this, one-on-one, go through the risks and assess the risks of each individual organisation, and then decide how to move forward and how to protect the company. That's what it's there for. It's there to be used. It's the new game and everyone's got to play it.
Dale, we are blessed with a wonderful network in our group of entities, and a major focus this year is just bringing more and more value into that network. This, for me, is such great value that if you're a business owner and you are watching this, I implore you to reach out and have a 5-minute conversation, have a coffee, find out more about this potential nightmare that you have on your hands. Reach out to us. We will put you in contact directly. This is really good information, Dale. I feel really blessed that I've been able to firstly bring you into my business, but more importantly, bring you into our network. It's a pleasure doing it, and I'm quite taken back by it. I implore you guys, if you're doing this, you have got to learn more, because this could be chaos. And then you could be on the phone after the fact saying, Lukey, I should have done this. Can we still do something?
Yep.
No, you can't.
No.
Super
You
interesting.
must be proactive.
Dale, I greatly appreciate your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.